gonna get going. All right, awesome. So here we are, the spirit of love. Thank you so much for being here. Let's take a second to settle in, making your way into a comfortable seat. And let's just take a couple moments here to land. Maybe start by keeping your eyes open and just taking a moment to allow your environment in through your senses. So just noticing the light and the colors and the objects that are around you. And then as you're ready, closing down your eyes, if that feels okay. You can always just find a soft gaze down at the ground, but let the eyes get still. And let's right away drop the awareness right into the seat. So however you're sitting and whatever you're sitting on, just give yourself a few moments to favor the awareness of the points of contact, right, between your body and the floor, the body and the prop. And as we move inside of this yin practice, this slow, reflective, lunar practice, start right away just by noticing if you can just give the weight of you, the weight of your bones and your tissues and all the other stuff that comes with you. See if you can just give the weight of that to the earth. Can you cultivate just a little bit of trust here that the ground underneath you is strong enough to hold you, and it's going to show up to support you regardless of what's going on with you. And as you settle into that contact and that support, that grounding earth underneath you, see if you can broaden your awareness just for a moment into the sounds of the space that you're in. Let your ears open up and take in sound. Can you be with listening and with sound and still remain connected to the ground? Even letting your awareness just kind of dance between listening and ground. For a breath, the same way you're listening to the sounds of the space, see if you can listen to your thoughts in that same sort of observational awareness, right? Just allowing the thoughts to come and go. Almost just acknowledging them as just another sound. And as we start to cultivate this deep listening, just a few more breaths here to take that same attention and notice the sort of tone and sound of your body, right? It's not making an auditory sound, but it has its own vibration and volume and tone, right? The felt sense. So a lot of what we're doing here in this practice is really just that. It's just practicing being curious, right? As much as we can be just this non-anxious presence to the self, the physical self, the mental self, the senses. Right? Really welcoming all of yourself and your experience into this practice and into this space. And before we get going, just a moment to acknowledge that we're all here together, right? We're doing this individually and in different spaces, but we've come together in this truly radical way to do this truly radical practice. So just a moment to cultivate some warmth, right? And some friendliness. Really welcome each other into the space. And we'll begin with the seed sound of Om. If you'd like to join, take a deep breath in. Open mouth, exhale. Inhale for Om. Breathe in. Breathe out. And we're going to come into half butterfly to begin. So if you have a block or a blanket that you like to sit on, you're welcome to, but we'll start by extending the right leg out and your left knee will bend. You can bring the sole of the left foot anywhere on the inside of the right thigh that feels really comfortable in your left knee. You're welcome again to maybe even try bringing a block or a blanket or a pillow underneath your left knee if that feels helpful in your hip. Please turn your chest towards your right leg and passively relax your spine and your head forward and start to make yourself into a shape that you can invite maybe a sense of rest into, so passivity. And as we settle into this first shape, just take your time. If you realize you need to go and maybe grab something or another prop, or, you know, always give yourself at least the first 5 breaths to really kind of just orient and acclimate to the posture and make adjustments before you just get determined to be in a specific shape. I'm gonna set I use my stopwatch app on my phone, so I'm gonna turn my timer on my phone. And I will take just this first half of this pose to kind of quickly talk us through the tattvas of Yin Yoga, sort of our energetic intention. And then I'm gonna leave you guys just to kind of practice in silence, cueing you just in and out of postures. Right, so our Yin Yoga practice is very different than pretty much every other form of yoga. It is slow and passive. It is the lunar quality, right? When we think of yin and yang, you might think of sun and moon. So in contrast to our more active and fiery yoga practices and mental practices, yin is one of just darkness and intuition and deep, deep listening, reflecting, just like the moon. So give yourself a lot of permission to explore softness, right? Notice where you're maybe even pushing or pulling unconsciously. Our bodies hold a lot of that tension, which maybe I'll speak to a little bit as we kind of get into practice, just in sort of this theme of the diaphragms. But this is such a good place just to see if you can let your jaw go. See if you can, all those little muscles in your face, right? Just the belly, the butt, right? Like just letting things just become very, very heavy. Okay, and the 3 tattvas are a gentle edge, stillness, and time. So these 3 different sort of qualities that we take into every single posture. Your gentle edge, again, is just, you're going to make the general shape of the body into the pose and then do your best to turn your muscles off. So we can work these more yin tissues, which are the connective tissues, the fascia, the joints, and the bones. Okay, so you can't stretch a bone, right? The same way you might stretch a muscle. We're not even technically trying to stretch the bones, but what we're just trying to do is create more space. I'm trying to give things more room to process and have coherence and flow and conversation. So we can't necessarily open, you know, and just stretch open the connective tissues the same way we might a muscle. So here we compress things and then we hold them for time. That's sort of how these tissues respond. So a gentle edge, please utilize props or take variations and feel free to make this practice yours. Our second tattva is stillness. So just do your best to use stillness as a practice of discernment, helping you discern the difference between discomfort and pain. This should never be painful, but discomfort is very normal. This is a really great place to be curious about discomfort and practice riding alongside it. Helps us build a little bit of capacity and resilience and also just helps us off our mat when things get a little bit uncomfortable or challenging in social situations or life in general. It helps us remember that that's just an experience we're having. It's not who we are, and we know how to be with and to stay connected even when discomfort arises. So be curious about that. But if you have an impulse to have water, if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to just move for whatever reason, that's always okay. Right? So a gentle edge, work into stillness. And then the last one is to hold for time. You're halfway, you're actually a little bit over halfway through this hold on this side. I'll always give you a halfway mark and a final minute. It just kind of helps us assess our edge. And if you're working with a specific intention or meditation practice, sometimes having those markers just keeps us present. We tend to get lost very much in our heads in our meditation practices. So those time markers are there just to help assist you navigate the practice and what we're doing. So I'm going to leave us into quiet for the rest of this posture. I'll let you know when you have you want to know what you have a minute left in 4 seconds. So we're basically in the final minute. And yeah, I'll just cue you in and out of poses pretty much for the rest of the class. I might offer a little tidbit again about diaphragms or containers if something feels inspiring, but most importantly, just let yourself listen, let yourself be with your body and the ground and that sense of support. Okay, nice and slow, start to lift your chest. Be, again, just gentle in between your postures if you need to back bend a little bit or wiggle, if you notice that your body wants you to yawn or take a specific breath. Again, trust those impulses. It's telling you how it wants to offload energy. So it doesn't need to be pretty or anything like that. Just let yourself wiggle. And before we do the other side, I'm going to ask you to do butterfly pose. So soles of the feet together, knees out wide. And we're going to take this again as a forward bend. So your feet can be a little bit further away from your pelvis than normal if you're a traditional sort of hatha practitioner. We try to create more of a diamond shape here. Again, sitting up on something, a pillow or something like that might be helpful, but do your best just to let your spine round and relax your head and neck. These first few poses of class, we're working right away into the hip sockets and the lower back, right, which are all very, very relevant and connected to your pelvis. So in this posture, your thigh bones are externally rotating in their hip sockets. If it feels interesting to you, or if you feel excited to sort of celebrate your pelvis here just with your attention and your curiosity, just notice the shape of the bone and how it's resting on the floor. Again, just where does it make contact with earth? How do you feel your thigh bones turn out? And as always, as just a good friend and a good practitioner, how can you support this action in a way that feels sustainable for you? And you're halfway through the hold. And we're going to stay for one more minute. And take a couple breaths here just to acknowledge, right, the sensation of the posture. And then slowly let yourself transition up and out. Right? Give yourself 5 nice, slow breaths here to feel things move and maybe dissolve. And however you like, in whatever way you like, make your way over to the half butterfly on the other side. So extending the left leg out long, bending your right knee, let the knee get comfortable. Doesn't really matter where the sole of the right foot lands. You can kind of maybe even assist your left butt cheek, kind of pull it behind you, again, to kind of help the pelvic bowl tilt forward as you forward bend. And if you need any props, please access them, but don't feel like you can't do this if you don't have props. You're just going to have to use your own bones a little bit as props. My teacher, the first couple years I practiced with her, and the first like couple years we taught yoga with Yin Yoga at Posers, we didn't have any props. So I would say traditionally it's not really taught with props. So it's okay if all you have is a cushion or a pillow under your butt. It doesn't need to be fancy. And you're halfway through. Again, just check in with where your body is touching the floor. In our Yin Yoga practice, we don't use a specific type of pranayama, but conscious breathing, just trusting and noticing that your body knows what the best breath for it is in this moment, right? Trusting your breath, feeling that. And we'll stay for one more minute. Okay, so nice and slow again. Let your body kind of show you how it needs to come up and out. Where do you need to leverage or press to lift yourself up? Notice your breath, or maybe your sense of pressure in yourself change as you start to move. And just a few moments here to wiggle. How you feel? Good. Our next pose is Malasana, the frog squat. So this is the spirit of love, Colin. I feel like doesn't always appreciate it when I teach this posture a lot. I think a lot of people have an interesting relationship with this posture. I'm kind of one of those people that really love the pose, but it's okay. We're all different. So go ahead and utilize a prop if you like to, but you're going to bring your heels in, your toes out, feet out nice and wide, and it's just a low squat. Actually, I'm not going to use the prop because some of you are not going to. So Colin's using a prop if you want to take a look at what that looks like. And I'm just going to drop. Okay, so as you settle into the squat, I'm going to start the timer because this is a little bit of a longer hold. You can bring your hands out in front of you and completely relax your head down. This is one of my favorite ways to practice it. Or if you're feeling a little bit more yang or alert, you can bring your hands together here and use your elbows as leverage to kind of assist pressing, right, the thigh bones out. So you can kind of choose for yourself. And as we settle into Malasana here, just a moment to kind of talk or sort of be curious about the pelvic cavity and the pelvis. This posture right here is like super, it's just like, it feels like a very earthy pose to me. It definitely feels like squatting in the dirt, if you know what I mean. If you it's low to the ground, and it's an opportunity to really just feel the pelvis and the sacrum, that beautiful big triangular bone at your lower back, just get heavy. So just see, regardless of other sensations that you might be experiencing in your body, if you can just play with the idea of breathing all the way into your pelvic floor. And I know that you can't actually breathe down there. Your lungs don't go that far, but you can know for sure that when you breathe in, you take oxygen in. Oxygen nourishes your blood, and that blood goes everywhere in your body, and it nourishes your entire body. So just with intention and curiosity, just imagining that nourishment going all the way down to, right, your tailbone and the floor of your pelvis. And the last thing I'm going to kind of say here before we just meditate in this posture is that your pelvic floor, that diaphragm in your pelvis, diaphragms act as support. They literally act as sort of the foundation of your organs, right? It's bearing the weight of the organs that live in your pelvis, your reproductive organs, your intestines, and also your bladder, right? So really important and amazing things happening down there. See if you can just invite this idea of heaviness and softness and groundedness with your breath. And you're over halfway through the hold. And we'll stay for one more minute. Okay. You can come out of the posture however you like. I'm going to invite you to do a forward bend just because that's what my body is asking me to do. So it might feel good to just extend through your legs after all that bending and come into like a very passive ragdoll posture. Oh, give it a little stretch. Lots of compression in that frog pose, especially right in the knees and in the hips. So just you might feel the blood flow kind of tingling and might feel really good to release that posture. All right, Malasana, child's pose is next. You're gonna come to the knees, spread them nice and wide so your belly, your whole front side can hang heavy between your thighs. Sink your hips back, and you can decide for yourself whether or not you wanna reach your arms out long in front of you or maybe rest your arms beside you. If you like maybe a pillow or a blanket underneath your thighs, in between your thighs and your calves. If this feels like a lot in your knees, you can do that. So again, experiment with your props. My email is also in the chat, just in case you're ever highly confused about a posture or just something feels completely inaccessible to you. Please always feel free to connect with me, so we can kind of workshop those things. And also that link to that Bernie book probably has some really good advice as well on these poses. And you're halfway through the hold. And we'll stay for one more minute. All right. You start to bring your hands maybe underneath your shoulders. I'm going to encourage you to press up through a tabletop position because we're going to transition to the belly next. If it feels good to swoosh your hips or do cat-cow tilts, or if you want to stretch out your legs, just do all those things for a couple breaths here. And then as you feel ready, we're going to come down to the belly for a Sphinx pose. So for Sphinx, as you lay down, you can bring your elbows directly underneath your shoulders. So you're kind of propped up, right? And your arms can come out in front of you like the number 11. I want you to check in for a moment with your butt. Those of us that are Hatha practitioners, we tend to just automatically squeeze our butt together when we do this. You can let your heels turn out or in, just let your thigh bones relax in the hip socket and completely relax your glute. Right, from here, you can relax your head down. You might bring your forehead to a block. You might look in front of you, like do whatever you need to do with your upper body. As we kind of move inside of Sphinx, I'm going to start my timer really quick. I wanted to do this posture A because it's a great back bend. This is such an important posture for the kidney adrenals. But this is an opportunity to really be with your pubic bone. That's a bone that we never talk about in yoga class, and it's like a totally legit, real part of your pelvis. And this is a great place just, again, to let it ground, to let it feel the points of contact between the body and earth. And then when you're doing this, you might notice this in your other yoga practices too, especially if you ever do locust or things where you're really lifting everything up. It can really hurt the pubic bone. So if you want to fold up a blanket or again, put a little pillow underneath the pelvis or the belly there, that can really help with creating an environment where the pubic bone can feel grounded, where the pubic bone can feel safe, right? And I know that might sound like totally like off the wall or like too much or like yoga teacher woo woo jibber jabber, but honestly, like I think the reason our diaphragms are so tense usually is because of stress. We'll just keep it really light, right? We'll keep this very PG. We are stressed. Our nervous system, our stress response literally touches every single organ in our body. It touches all of our tissues. And when it is in a constant state of stress or dysregulation, because it was never taught to ground and was probably never really taught safety, it is in a constant state of bracing. And what's really beautiful about this is what I think it's doing is it's actually trying to give you a hug. It's trying to contain that energy and ground you. But it's just misdirected. So our yoga practices are such a good place to orient your environment, to assess a present sense of safety and union and relationship with what's happening, and really allowing these parts of your anatomy that have been holding a lot of stress, probably your whole life, a place that feels safe and a place that feels grounded, right? I really think that that's where the biggest sort of pieces of our healing and transformation happen in just those two things, presence and ground. So you're halfway through this hold, a moment to be, again, that present, non-anxious, loving awareness to your pubic bone. Again, maybe imagining your breath welcoming in nourishment all the way down into your pelvis. And we'll stay for one more minute. Okay, you can go ahead and come all the way down onto your belly for a couple breaths if that feels good. If your legs are asking you to windshield wiper them, or if the body is asking you for movement, go ahead and again, just follow those impulses. But over the next couple breaths or so, we're nearing the end of class, so I'm gonna just move us through it a little bit. Just flip all the way over onto your back. And take a moment to find your back body heavy and in contact again with the ground. We're going to do half happy baby first on the right. So keep your left leg long, again, back body on the ground. Bend your right knee. And you can grab and just sort of pull the knee in towards your chest like Colin's doing, or you can grab for the inside or outside of your foot for a half happy baby. Yeah. Do your best to relax, right? Your head down on the ground. This is not a long hold, and this might feel really intense really quickly. One of my teachers would call it the unhappy baby, especially in Yin, because it just can be a lot of feeling. It's a lot of compression right there in the hip socket. It's kind of awkward, right? So just a couple moments here. And then from this half happy baby, go ahead and twist your right leg all the way over to the left for a supine twist. And this doesn't need to be perfect, or this isn't a long hold. This is just a moment to have a last little twist of the spine and a little bit of movement before our last meditation. So pulling your right leg over to the left, letting your chest be heavy. If you like, you can look over your right shoulder. Again, just a few breaths. Go ahead and come back through center. Maybe give it another little squeeze. And then let's switch that out. So extend your right leg out long, let it relax, bend your left knee in, and give it a little squeeze here. And then yeah, half happy baby. As you're ready, grab for the inside or the outside of the foot. Let your back body be heavy. And just nice presence, deep breaths right into the hip. And go ahead and gather the left knee in. We're going to twist it over to the right. You might use your right hand to pull it over, rolling onto your left hip here, or your right hip rather. Maybe look over your left shoulder. Supine twist. Go ahead and bring the left knee back. Maybe give it one more little squeeze. Maybe bring your right knee up to meet it, full Apanasana. If you like that little cannonball shape, give it a breath. And then go ahead and lay all the way down. And there's a couple different ways you can do this as we move through our little Pelvis Meditation. You can lay all the way down, extending your legs out long, or active rest is fine too, keeping your knees bent, soles of the feet flat to the floor. Sometimes that can bring a little bit of ease into the lower back. And also just bringing your feet flat to the floor is another way just to create more sense of ground. So just give yourself a couple moments here to land and choose how you want to take this last posture. And then if you want to follow along into this little sort of meditation, energy, touch work, just letting your arms be relaxed here. First and foremost, find the points of contact between the body and the floor. And a moment just to check in with your breath, not to breathe in any way specifically, but just to feel the breath moving in and out of the body. And start to pay close attention or be curious about your pelvis. Without touching it, first just invite the awareness into that area of your body. In the same way you would listen to a sound, just notice what's the volume. Is it really obvious? Is it loud? Is it clear? Or is it really, really soft and you can barely hear it, right? Because both things are true for all of us, right? It's going to be unique to you. So is it loud? Is it quiet? Does it come with an energy, a vibe? And then go ahead, if it feels right to you, bring your right hand to the iliac crest. So if you were going to put your hand on your hip, like when we put our hands on our hips, even though that's not your hip, go ahead and rest your hand there on that big bone of your pelvis on the right side. Right. And as you rest your hand there, very basic, like so basic, no need to turn this into a poem or anything like that. Just feel the contact of your hand on your hip. Maybe you feel the warmth of your hand. And also, what does the hand feel? It probably might feel your clothes, or if you're touching your skin, it might feel that sense of softness of the flesh and the fat and the tissue. Right? So just a moment of contact. And the idea here is just to be present, to just show up, to be, again, just this kind presence to that very special and specific area of your body. You might imagine, again, your breath moving all the way through your palm, just to offer a sense of nourishment. Use your imagination and see if you can kind of create a 3D experience of, right, your right pelvis area that's underneath your hand, all the way down to the floor that's underneath it. So that whole cavity, that whole region, that whole shape of that bone, right, the crest of that right pelvis. It's such a beautiful, odd shape, right? It's like a wing. And now, keeping your right hand there, invite your left hand to the left, right? Saying that iliac crest, that big, beautiful top of your left hip area, your left pelvis. And as both hands come to touch, a moment, just find ground, right? Check in with the breath. Keeping your left hand on the left hip, you can let your right hand relax off of your body for a moment. So we can really just bring the attention into the left. And it's almost as if the hand, again, is it's just saying hello. It's not trying to massage or force or expect anything. The left hip might not be online. There might not be anything going on there, but the hand doesn't care. The hand is there regardless, like the earth underneath you, right? It's this supportive, non-anxious presence. It's creating a container for your container of your pelvic cavity. Your hand and the ground are sort of acting as this container to just create a little sense of extra ground and safety. So the tissues of the pelvis and the pelvic floor, maybe just for a breath, can receive the idea of flow and nourishment and safety. And whatever sensations come forward, right, just the same way you're a good listener, a good friend, you're just going to validate. No need to tell a story. The body isn't going to tell you a story. That's your mind. The body is going to give you a somatic, felt sense experience. And that's what we're here to be with. I'm feeling the warmth underneath your palm. Being curious about what is filling that whole area underneath your palm all the way down to the floor. Now, keeping your left hand on your left hip, bring your right hand back to your right hip. And just for a couple more breaths here, use your imagination that there is a coherence or a conversation between the right and the left, that if there was movement, right, it could move fluidly back and forth with ease. If it was a conversation between the right and left, it would be an engaged, present, listening, sharing, really fun conversation, a really cool conversation, really honest conversation. And then go ahead and bring your hands off of your body for a moment and see if, without touching your pelvis, again, if you can just bring your awareness, be with the beautiful shape and the weight and the support and everything inside of the pelvic cavity. And then we're going to stay just about, 5 or so more breaths. If this feels interesting to you, maybe you stay. Maybe now's a good time just to let go, just to be with a few deep breaths. And just a moment to kind of let your practice really settle. And I'm going to call you up and out in just a minute. And you can invite a deeper breath here. Maybe a little wiggle or a stretch, a little movement in your fingers or your toes. If you like, you can rock over onto either side in a supported fetal position posture. Give yourself a moment to land. Again, just to kind of be in the body, to be curious about your environment, the sounds, the space, where you are in relationship to objects. And then over the next couple breaths, start to press yourself up to a seat, and we'll close out class together. Awesome. I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that kind of work, and for trusting me with your practice, and for being curious about your body in this way and taking the time to, you know, just show up. I think showing up and just being present is super, super powerful. So hopefully that was a good experience and a relaxing experience. And as always, I know like going into this like hyper intense focus of this areas of your body can also just like bring up a lot of stuff. So know that my email is in the chat box. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out and connect. I'm going to have us close our class out together with some ohms. We'll do 3 of them. And if you want to share your sound, I would love that, but you have to unmute yourself. So go ahead and unmute yourself. And you also can just choose to sit in silence. Always okay too. All right, if you like, go ahead and gather your hands together at heart center, Anjali Mudra. Right, this hand gesture inside of our yoga context and practice. Anjali represents non-dualism, right? This idea that all seemingly oppositional forces can and do come together in the compassionate center of the heart. Left and right, above and below, you and me, yin and yang, beginning and end, right? Honoring truth in all things, all beings, all experience. We'll do 3 ohms. Take a breath in to prepare. Open mouth. Inhale for Om. Om. Nice deep breath in, breath out, and bowing towards yourself. Om Shanti, Om peace, 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 peace. Thank you. All right, friends, I'm gonna gallery view y'all so I can see your beautiful faces. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. For those of you that maybe popped in a little bit late, in the chat box, I put a link to Bernie Clark's website where you can read this book for free. It's for free as a PDF on the website. It's just a great resource. It's a wonderful book on yoga. It's a wonderful book on Yin Yoga. Bernie Clark is a good teacher, and also has like tons of YouTube videos and anatomy videos and stuff like that online. So please feel free to, you know, especially during these times, if you have a little extra time for some self-study or anything like that, that's a really good resource. I was so stoked to find that today. And then there's also like all my donation information. So thank you so much for supporting me and for supporting posers. Thank you so much for supporting your pelvis. Is there a question?
Yeah, could you re-put the information in the chat box? I don't see it.
Yeah, I only see your email address.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. How do I, let's see. Cool, I'm gonna put it in the chat box if I can. Do you see that?
Yes.
Let me see. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, totally. So my PayPal email is just my regular email. So that's also like, you can just contact me. It's not always just about like giving me money. You're always welcome just to hit me up for anything like that that you might need. And of course, feedback about class. If you're like, oh my God, like I can't feel my pelvis at all. Like that, oh my God, I still have moments where I can't feel my pelvis. Like, especially if I'm in inversions or upside down, like sometimes a lot of like our work in meditation is just patiently bringing our body back online. There's been so much disassociation and disconnection for so many different reasons. We all have our story with that, but that's such a beautiful part of our yoga practice, is learning to be in our body again. It's so powerful and so healing. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. If I'm here, if anybody has any feedback or wants to share anything, I'll stick around until all of you guys close out. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for doing yoga with me every single time there's a posers class. Bye, beautiful friends. Bye, Emily. Good to see you. I'm so glad you're here, honey. Yeah, it was
That
so
was
good
such
to
a
see
cool
you in class. Yeah,
I haven't taken
awesome.
one of your yin classes in a long time.
Awesome.
It was
Yeah,
so
the mighty
nice.
pelvis. Good. I know. Yin is the yin revolution. We need so much yin yoga. Look at your friend. Hi, buddy.
Oh, he's so big. Well, here.
Hi. Cute. Thank you.
Well, good to see you.
Good
Bye.
to see you too. Thank you,
you.
Katie. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, sweet Cindy.
There was on the calendar, when you click posers, it gave the wrong it had the wrong Zoom ID at first. Like you have to go into details to do it. I think that's why I had a little trouble getting on too, but then when I clicked more detail, because it was like from April 1st, so it's like, oh, this sounds like something from the beginning of when we were doing online stuff.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll have to look into it. It was like when you went to the actual poser schedule.
Yeah. So there's like the it's had the Wednesday class, and then the first thing, like when you just click it, was an old link.
An old link. Okay.
And then when
the link wasn't updated, but the actual blurb about class was updated.
Yeah, and then when you click more details, then it gave you like the full stuff. So I think that's what that one girl was talking about with the link issue. So just
okay.
Thanks so much. I was thinking of the chakra stuff that we were talking about, and it's like, oh, I can feel like the snake, but doing figure eights. And
yes, I love that.
Appointment today, I was just like, oh my God, just all the things.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Oh, well, awesome. I'm so glad you were here. I'm glad it was good. Yeah, check out that link to that book. It's so good.
I could do yin forever. It's definitely my favorite.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll see you Saturday.
All right, honey. Sounds good. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Bye.